Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good today. We're continuing on with our series of the Everlasting Covenant, and we're going to be over in 2 Samuel. We've just briefly we can look back. We've already had talked about the everlasting covenant with Noah and all flesh, where the Lord made the covenant that He would never destroy the world by water and flood again. And we had one with Abraham through Isaac and Jacob. It was talking about the giving Abraham and his seed the land and the blessings, and that they would be the children of the Lord. And also we had the everlasting covenant between the priesthood and God as far as the way that they would worship the Lord in the tabernacle. Now the one that we're going into today, there's several more times that it was mentioned here, but this is the moving on to the what they call the Davidic covenant, and that's the covenant that God made with King David and his seed. Now, 2 Samuel 7 and 12 through 16. That's where we're going to start out this morning. Going to do my best to get this done in 12 minutes with the help of the Lord. King David was a man who the Bible tells us was after God's own heart. That means that he was very important to God, and we're all important to God, and God is no respecter of persons. But David's heart toward the Lord and worship toward the Lord was such that he really stands out. David, of course, is the one of the first thing we think of with David is he was the young lad who God allowed to slay the giant Philistine, Goliath. He went on to be the king of Israel, of all of Israel, the second king, matter of fact, after the King Saul. But let's go ahead and look at this and see how all this ties in together to our series of the Everlasting Covenant. 2 Samuel chapter 7 and verse 12 through 16. Verse 12 says, and this is, before I start reading this is the Lord talking to David through Nathan, his prophet. Verse 12 says, and when thy days be fulfilled, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers. I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. Now, verse 12, God's telling David, you're going to die at some point in the future. It's appointed to all men wants to die, and God just was telling him that he would die. But also he made that promise that thy seed, that's his descendants, as we've talked about a number of times, that there's a promise there, and he would that the Lord would establish his kingdom through the seed of David, and he did. But let's go ahead and go a little further. Verse 13 says, he shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Now, he's talking immediately there about David's son, King Solomon, who we know was the wisest man who had asked God for wisdom to rule his people when he became king. Well, even Solomon, as wise as he was, he had some issues. The Bible tells us that we're all flesh, that there's no perfect, no, not one other than Jesus. But anyway, he's established that kingdom there. And let's go ahead and go on with verse 14 and 15. Verse 14 says, I'll be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten. In other words, that means in old redneck terms, I'll whoop him. I will chasten him with the rod of men, and with the stripes of the children of men. In other words, God would use other people to actually punish him if he committed iniquity before God, and he did, but that's a whole different story. Verse 15 is very important here. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul. Of course, he rendered God rendered the kingdom from Saul and gave it to David, whom I put away before thee. So it was the one right before David, and God's telling him, my mercy departed from Saul. His mercy departed from Saul because of Saul's own disobedience to the Lord and disrespect. Now, verse 16 says, and thy house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever. When we talk about the throne, that's where we're talking about that the authority to rule would be established forever. Well, when we look at this, I'm going to back up here to, I think it's going to be like verses in chapter 7, back up in that same chapter, and verse 5. The Lord is where he first started. The Lord first told Nathan to start telling David these things. Go and tell my servant David, thus saith the Lord, shalt thou build me an house for me to dwell in? David wanted to build a temple. Remember, they were still, the Ark of the Covenant was still in the tabernacle, which was a movable tent. Verse 6 says, whereas I have not dwelled in any house since the time that I brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt, even to this day, but have walked in a tent and in a tabernacle, and all the places wherein I've walked with all the children of Israel, spake I a word with any of the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to feed my people Israel, saying, why build me not a house of cedar? So he said, he's telling Nathan to ask him, have I asked for this? No, he hadn't asked for it. God created the whole world and everything in it and everything in the whole universe. So, but he told him no, he would not be able to, that David, and it tells us in other places, would not be able to build a temple because of the blood that was on his hands, but he would let Solomon do that. Now, let's go ahead and I'm going to jump over here to 2 Samuel chapter 23 and verse 7, and 3 through 7 rather. Chapter 23, these are the last words of David, and they're parenthetical because this was several years, a good many years before David died, but it was put here because he was reflecting back. Chapter 23 and verse 3 says, the God of Israel said, the rock. And there again, the word rock is capitalized. The God of Israel said, the rock of Israel spake to me. And this is David revealing back to some of the people. He that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God, and he shall be as the light of the morning when the sun rises, even a morning without clouds as the tender grass. When the grass first comes up in the springtime in the morning, it's tender. Without clouds is the tender grass springing up out of the earth by clear and shining after the rain. And it goes on into verse 5 says, although my house be not with God, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant. There is the phrase we're looking for. Ordered in all things for this is all my salvation and all my desire, although he make it not to grow, but the sons of Belial shall be all of, let me start over there. But the sons of Belial shall be all of them as thorns thrust away, because they cannot be taken with hands, but the man that touched them shall be fenced with iron and the staff of a spear, and they shall be utterly burned with fire in the same place. Now that seems kind of confusing there, but he's talking about all the way up to verse 6. When he's talking about fear, that's reverential trust of the Lord and hatred for the evil. Back over there in verse 3. And when he says, although my house be not with God, he's talking about that at that time, David's kingdom and even his family, there was a whole lot of strife going on. There was strife there that was created by disobedience, where God was chastening them as he had said he would. There had been, it goes on and on, but there had been disobedience. David was disobedient in several places. He sinned in the things that were taken up with Uriah and Uriah's wife Bathsheba by David, and also David had numbered the children of Israel, and the Lord had told him not to. There was incest where one of his sons had relations with his daughter, and the other son killed that son. And one of the sons, Absalom, was trying to take the kingdom away from David. And there was a lot of problems going on because of disobedience. But he is told, right, he's telling people, although my house is not in peace and the way it should be right now, it will be that God has made these promises. And where he's talking about the sons of Belial, and that's capitalized. Belial is another word for Satan, and that is where it springs forward to the final days, which we've already talked about. What makes this an everlasting covenant is the things that are to come in the millennial reign of Christ. The Lord made a commitment to David, and it still will be fulfilled. And I'm running out of time, so what we'll do is we'll come back with the help of the Lord on Monday and pick up here and continue this and finish out this portion of the Davidic covenant. I hope y'all have a good weekend. I hope you're still thankful. We have much to be thankful for. God is really blesses us, and if we just keep our mind and our eyes on the good things that God has given to us, and keeping Jesus in our heart, that'll help us not be taken down by all the other stuff that's going on. Just like David's talking about the strife that there was there with them during that period of time, it went on for a season. But if you're saved, the bad things will not last forever. The Lord never promised us it's all going to be easy, but he did promise us he'd never leave us nor forsake us. And that's the everlasting covenant that the Lord has made with all Christians. Hope you have a good weekend and be safe, be kind to each other, and tell somebody about Jesus.